Hey guys, Thomas the Silly Gene here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Night Swim. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. Second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And fourth to my Discord server, where you can join, collab, and chill and do all that cool stuff. And chilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all of that out of the way, let's get into Night Swim. Now, I think I saw the trailer for this once, and I saw more thumbnails about it on YouTube, so I was like, okay, I wonder what the heck this is. Seems horror, so something that I'm all too familiar with in terms of a genre that has continuously not been doing that hot as of recently, with very few exceptions that I'm not even going to honestly remember the name of any of them at this point. But point being is that I decided to check this movie out and will review it as objectively as conceivably possible. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So the movie opens up with a young girl getting ready to pool up, and she's in the pool, she's playing alone for whatever reason, and then we come across a little boat that suddenly appears there. So she tries to grab the boat after her little detour, and ends up back in the water. Once doing so, we see her, being pulled down by these forces that are supernatural in tow, and lo and behold, she is the first victim of this movie. So, already we have a premise with a supernatural force, so I'm like, okay, I'm willing to engage on that level, so let's see where it goes. So the movie then cuts to, we have a family of four. We have a husband, wife, and two kids, one daughter and son. The father was a baseball player who gotten some injury. The movie doesn't really divulge what that injury was, just that it has caused him tremendous pain and he's going through physical therapy. And to my knowledge, I don't know of that many movies that have delved into physical therapy as its sort of attachment to character. And I'm sure there are plenty, but again, none that spring immediately to mind. So I was like, okay, I'm willing. That's an interesting little, character, thing to have. Unfortunately, the other characters, by comparison, just aren't as interesting as our sort of main character here, the father. The mother, just likes the pool, I guess, when they get it. The daughter gets, invited to a swimming club, and the son is the only one that is outcasted or not involved with anything water related or pool related in this instance for the case of the movie. And I would have liked a little bit more material for the rest of the characters. I think that the base of the father's character is rather sufficient. It is, again, just the father who does seem to get the brunt characteristic here. When they initially arrive, he sees something in the water himself, he grabs for it, he falls in it with the tarp there, so he's struggling to get out. He gets out, the family checks in on him, they sort of take it in as some sort of accident. The doctor tells him that they need to move up their speed up his diagnostic, and she suggests, as a part of her his recovery, to try water therapy, which I was already aware of this before even the movie came out, that water therapy is extremely effective. There was definitely a few other movies that I've come across where that has been depicted. So having that once again was just, it kind of reminded me of those movies. The titles of those movies are kind of eluding me at the moment. None the less, we see that the father has another incident where he cuts his hand on when he's near the pool, and when it gets sucked into the bottom of the pool area, this jetting out of blood or whatever mixed in with water jets out. So they're like, okay, we need to investigate what that's all about. So they hire in some pool experts or whatever, who say that they're super lucky that that's what they're getting, because apparently that relates to that this particular pool is directly access to a main stream of water or something, or they have a direct line. So I don't know, I guess that translates to good water, I guess, is how they put it, if I remember correctly. So now we see all four of them use the pool at once, and this is probably the only instance where nothing occurs in terms of the pool trying to trick or deceive or do any of that stuff. Later on, we see the mom continuing to use the pool, but now solo. She spots the cat, and this is definitely a bizarre moment where she's like, "Oh, come on, come in the water," or something to the cat. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm like, you do realize cats hate water, right? Generally speaking, of course. But then, while she's there alone, she thinks she sees her own husband there, and the lights begin to flicker. So she exits out quickly before even more stuff starts occurring. She tells the dad that this is happening and asks him if he had went out there, and he says no. And that we see later on the cat approach the pool alone by itself. And surprise, surprise, the next morning the only thing we see of the cat is its collar is the only thing that is left behind, meaning that the cat is the fallen victim, I guess, off screen in this case. So the dad unravels his hand to see that the injury that he had occurred had already healed. So I'm not entirely sure if that meant that if the earlier thing was a fake out or what. Again, I'm a little lost on that one, but we'll just continue on. So the mom tells the daughter to be easier on the brother with losing of the cat, and them apparently needing to move because the dad's a baseball player, and with it being a baseball player, they talk about how he's been moved from team to team, so that also meaning them moving from state to state. So that is all accumulated information here. We have the mom having a nightmare about water. And then we have a moment where the son goes up to do some pulling up. He's ready to do some pool, and the dad is like doing some reps, trying to recover and all that good stuff. They do this stuff with quarters. It's like a little mini game or whatever where they like toss the coins in the water. So it's like, all right, here, have a quarter, do the thing, and they put a little smiley face on one of them. And so he's like going to collect them in the water, and as he's collecting one, another one drops down, and then this process continues for quite a bit, where he's on in the water for quite a while there, and then he makes his way back up, seeing how no one is suddenly around. This leading him to believe that something is up with the pool at this instant. So he is the first one to, gain immediate sus that there's something wrong with the pool. Though I suppose Mom having the dream, I don't know if that counts or not, but let's see. So during this, he doesn't completely neglect the pool quite yet. He hears something above or beneath. When he's beneath, he hears it from above the diving board. And furthermore, when he swims towards this voice he starts hearing the voice from the character we saw at the beginning, whose name is Rebecca Summers, as it were. And then a hand grabs him, and now he definitely knows that something is up with the pool, if there was any reasonable doubt beforehand. So we see that we cut to a day later or something where the parents are leaving for some reason. It's very vague. I guess they're going on a date or something, I don't know. And the daughter has the guy who invited her out to the swimming team to her pool. So he's there now with her, and they're playing a little game of Marco Polo, in which, moments in, she says, fish out of water, which is the thing you say when someone's out of the pool. She kind of says it a bit super early, and then he proceeds to, after she says it, go out of the pool, which you would think a game of one-on-one pool, you would think the distinctive sound of someone getting out would be a bit on the obvious side. I don't know, I think this scene comes at a little bit of a head tilt on this one. Again, the sound of someone getting out of the pool is very distinct. And probably, again, would only be masked by several people playing. But with it, again, only being one-on-one, I'm not really necessarily already buying this scene. Then she hears a voice that is not definitely this guy she's, I guess, interested in, I guess. I guess she is, because she accepts a kiss from him later on, but before that, she's chasing this voice that clearly doesn't sound like him, and she's, like, keeping her eyes closed, or as closed as possible, as we see through her vision at points, and we see that the little, like, blur, meaning that she's using a technique of closing her eyes but keeping them open enough to do that. And she's doing that and reaching the voice and then having it come behind her and freaking her out and all this stuff. So she swims away upset initially, and then he calms her down and then does the whole thing where I just said, where he kisses her. It's like, okay, so I guess they're a item now, I guess. Again, the movie doesn't really focus on this character or them together. So, the son tries to talk to her when she returns, saying that trying to figure out if she experienced any paranormal activity, which we know that she did. But she kind of sweeps it away, saying that it's helping with the whole dad thing. And the son suggests that maybe it's doing both. Maybe it's both helping and haunting us, or the family. Let's see. So, we cut then to a pool party, which was a little bit established of like, okay, we're the new people, and we have this pool, so let's have a pool party. Let's invite all the people over. Let's have a good old time. So now there's a bunch of people here. The son is still upstairs. He's recording what's happening. And the father, who was with this other kid, and then this other guy, get into like one of those pool games where it's like knocking each other off of the person who's beneath. So they're playing that game. I legitimately don't know what it's called, believe it or not. Point being is that they're going into the deeper end of the pool. The dad's completely submerged by the time the kid knocks off the other kid. And then we have this black ichor, I guess I'll call it, that all ingest into the father, and we clearly see this veiny look clearing this sort of position. It's occurring. So now the kid's like, hey, we won, get me out, or whatever, or like, you can let me go, and then he's not letting go. So we see them go deeper and deeper, and then they get rescued when a bunch of people notice, including the son, who notices pretty early on. They all rush out. They save the kid first, because they get to the part of the water where he's underneath it too. And then they get him out, the father, and the wife of that other family is like, stay away after that incident. So that only cut off more people, and there was a little bit of police involvement, but nobody got in trouble. So it probably behooved them, and quite frankly, it's already too late in the movie, at least for the father apparently, at this point in the movie, to get fixed. Because he's already been taken over or whatever. And I do think that, based on the knowledge I know about the end of the movie, I do think that it's a bit of a cheap trick, considering that he seems to be like the only character in this movie, or notable character at least, in terms of you clearly know what he's going through, you clearly know what he's about, because they set all of that up, especially by comparison to the rest of the family. And he's the only character, I guess I'll just cut to the end, where he sacrifices himself for some reason, because he comes to the conclusion, which I guess is suddenly the right one, that the water needs a sacrifice or something. It's like, okay, that's just a rule now, I guess. Though, when we get to how that comes about, I'm still even more confused, but we'll get there. While that was going on, or before, the mom was asking about the pool, its history, And this is when she was already getting sussed about the pool and about, you know, because she's learning a little bit as the seller of the house is in the pool party, and she's exposing more of the information. So now she, too, is finding it suspicious. So now we have three characters who find it suspicious. One who's currently possessed and is the only one currently defending the house, or the pool, rather. We see him struggling more when they try to leave. The mom tosses in this filter thingamabob, or some type of device. And then we cut to a scene where it's her and her daughter, and she talks about how she doesn't feel like she's been a good mom. This does kind of feel like it's the scene that kind of comes out of nowhere in regards to everything else. It's definitely a break from all the pool stuff, and I guess it's the only bit of something we get to learn about the mom, but I mean, again, it does, again, come a little bit out of nowhere, or at least in terms of, like, everything else that's been going on. So, this is where the mom begins to do some digging about that Rebecca girl, because that name gets brought up again. She finds that there have been even more missing people revolved around the pool stuff. Surprise, surprise. So she was seeking the parents of Rebecca, in which she finds the mom, and we see them have a chat where she's going on about the water history and how it has this ability to heal or whatever, and that it requires a sacrifice. All of this stuff starts to come out about how all these rules are coming out near the end of the movie, which is, I think, very commonly a huge mistake in horror. Usually, what you would typically preferably do is have your rules set up super early and then have them maintain a consistent set of rules is the preferred method I think you would want to try to achieve in a horror movie, not have these sudden rules abruptly pop up and then there's suddenly a breach of them almost immediately, which there is, because we saw that the possession of the dad, we saw what happened, and then what we see happen to the son not too much longer from now doesn't really make it. The leap from that to that there's no connecting tissue for those two things. Anyways, the woman gets possessed, so she's like, oh, it's too late. So now the mom's rushing back home. We see the daughter has a glass of water. She sets it down. We see the water move on its own, so it's not just the pool itself, it's like all these sources of water. We see the son drink a little bit of that water, because when they arrive home, it's just them two. He sees like this ripple effect that occurs, but it's nothing else other than that. And P.S. there's no black goo ichor that enters him, which is baffling, considering again what happens next. So, how this is all, we see, by the way, the dad is taken over again. So, we have the son who hears the cat from earlier in the movie, so he's the first to head out to the pool, and begins to try to use the diving board to get to the cat, or what he assumes is the cat. He gets dragged in. The daughter sees something. We see little demonic forces always like popping up at this point in juncture of the movie. The sister and mom, who rushes there from where she was to, because like the cap that like covers the pool up is like moving so that the son wouldn't be able to make his way up. So they're trying to avoid that first from doing that. So she breaks it so that it won't move anymore. And then the mom goes into the pool and says for the daughter to go get help. So now the daughter is back inside, and she comes across her dad, who we already know is possessed. And then she sees that and freaks out, and now she's hiding from her own dad. Meanwhile, the mom is searching for her son in this deep pool of water. She eventually grabs him, and then we see a bunch of more gobbledygook demons, and then she bumps into a Rebecca, or Rebecca's ghost or whatever, and then she shows the mom that she's actually been heading down instead of up in this, I guess like in the only cool shot in the movie where it does like this almost Pirates of the Caribbean thing where it like flips over and shows that they've been going further down instead of up towards the surface. But I'm just saying, it has been done before, but, I'm just saying, it's still a cool thing, I guess. Anyway, we see that the sister is trying to beat up her own dad because he's possessed and whatnot. And when he gets a convincing talk to, this allows the evil gunk to expel from his body. But now all of a sudden the son is suffering from the gunk that it somehow got in his system. It's like, what the fuck? We never saw him get possessed, and the movie never signified that when he took that little drink of water that somehow meant he was possessed. I guess that's what it was trying to say, but again, not even remotely clear that that was the case at the time. But then the father comes to the conclusion, oh, I must pay, so he goes back into the water where there's this black ichor that is on the deep end, and then he heads towards it, and once he's consumed by said gump, the son is freed and spits out his own gunk. And so they lose the only character that was even remotely interesting in the movie. He made his sacrifice, and the son is watching some footage that he had left behind. And they say that they don't want to leave in hopes that this won't happen again, while also simultaneously just having the pool be filled up by dirt. And that was Night Swim. I think this movie had an uphill battle from premise alone. I mean, possessed water is definitely a little bit of on that uphill battle sort of premise and quite frankly, I don't think that translated too smoothly to the movie in terms of plot and more so on character, as again, we don't really get much of character in the movie outside, again, the main one. Which, again, is a consistent issue with a lot of current horror movies, is this lack of setup on characters. And, again, even furthermore so, is the clarification of quote-unquote rules of what is happening here. I think actively showing the possession and what that entails unironically hurt the movie because of what happens not even moments later with the son. And again, if that was a consistent thing, then there wouldn't be any issue, but there clearly is. So again, just to filling in those gaps is what would fulfill, and it wouldn't take much, by the way, just a little, black ichor, if that's the selling point of what it takes to be possessed, then that's all that would have been needed to be required. But again, that's not the case for the son. Just keeping these things consistent and tight, tightening up the characters, letting them stretch out in terms of all of that. Because it's not like these particular characters are necessarily hateable, which is like the majority of current horror movies. As when you start to root for the killer, you're already on that bizarre footing of like, yeah. But they're not necessarily too likable either, outside of, again, the main character. So I think I'm gonna stick with a 5 out of 10. I think this movie is kind of just in the middle, meh. Deeper exploration in terms of a lot was necessary to alleviate most, if not all, of the issues of this movie. But that is my full review of Night Swim. And if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, everybody, bye-bye.